Good morning. I will now call the April 6, 2022 Regular and Housing Authority meeting to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Desmond.
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher here.
Housing Authority Tenant Commissioner Wilma Bonds.
Present.
Housing Authority Tenant Commissioner Francisco Penalosa.
Present.
The Board of Supervisors, along with our two tenant commissioners, serve as the governing body for the Housing Authority, and I would like to welcome both of you to the Housing Authority meeting this morning. We'll move forward with item 1 on the Housing Authority agenda to adopt a resolution of the Housing Authority of the County of San Diego Board of Commissioners approving the Public Housing Agency annual agency plan and supporting policy documents, authorizes the submittal of the plans and resolution to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, authorize the Executive Director of CSD to execute all public housing agency certificates, find that these are not projects defined in the state CEQA guidelines, and approve the public housing 5-year capital fund program. Let me ask the clerk first if we have any public speakers on agenda item 1.
Chair Fletcher, we did not have any requests to speak on the housing item number 1.
All right, let me ask staff if they have any comments they would like to make. No? Okay, great. Let me go to Commissioner.
Fine.
Good. Oh, sorry. I saw your microphone on. I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to say something. Okay, I will make a motion to approve the items in number 1. We have a motion by myself, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Any comments from board members? Not seeing any, please vote. Call the roll.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Bonds.
Aye.
And Commissioner Penalosa.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. With all commissioners who are present voting aye.
Do I need to call you?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Let me get back to this. I apologize.
That's okay.
Aye.
It's my first time around with this one.
Yeah, okay.
Anderson. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Supervisor Desmond.
Yes.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all commissioners who are present voting aye.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you very much for joining us. Next on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address our board on subject matters within our jurisdiction, but which are not on today's agenda. Reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public who are non-English speaking and need interpretation will be provided additional time to facilitate translation. Pursuant to the rules of procedure, we will have up to 5 in-person speakers and 5 virtual speakers. Any remaining non-agendized public speakers will be heard from at the conclusion of our meeting today. I'll ask the clerk to call forward up to 5 in-person and 5 virtual speakers at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We did have 19 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 5 in person and 14 by phone. For those that requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using those instructions provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You will also have 2 minutes to address the board. I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Robert German, Dean Spooner, Eleanor, Sylvia, and Audra. And if you could please begin by stating your name before you begin your comments for the audio record.
Robert Gurman. I am here today for my family. My dad was a Pearl Harbor survivor, my mom a Navy nurse in World War II. I am also here for the Marine paratroopers who trained at Gillespie Field. Their voices must be heard. In support of Ukraine, our country has banned all flights of Russian aircraft from flying through U.S. airspace and landing at U.S. airports. We in East County have Russia's Red Star proudly displayed on planes parked at Gillespie Airport and flying over our homes. I had a slideshow to show you. Russia's Red Star does not differentiate between aircraft, nor should we. I'm asking the Board of Supervisors to write and pass an ordinance to parallel the federal government's ban on Russian planes for general aviation airports and aircraft. At this time, no one should be allowed to fly Russia's Red Star on aircraft over our homes, nor land or take off of displaying the Russian Red Star at FAA federally funded airports. The San Diego ordinance should run concurrently with the U.S. government's ban. I ask the board to promote the ordinance state and nationwide for all general aviation airports and aircraft. No Russia Red Star flying over the United States. In solidarity with Ukraine. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next speaker.
My name's Eleanor, and we came here to this country for freedom. How ironic, it's all being removed from us. I just want you to know that my mom died a year ago from this jab that you people are all saying is so wonderful. She died because she thought her life would get back to normal. So you have based everything that you're saying on a PCR test that is false and unreliable. And I can understand that 2 years ago, perhaps you thought you were doing the correct thing. But 2 years later, we still have 451 unreliable PCR tests, and you're still basing your science on that. And yesterday, Tara Lawson-Remer said that we have to protect the most vulnerable students, the children who haven't been vaccinated. I'm a teacher, and I'm a daycare provider, and I've worked with children for more than 40 years. And I will tell you that I've never seen a pandemic of vaccine-injured children like we've seen in the last 15 years. This is not a vaccine, it's an experimental gene therapy. And when you propose that children get this shot, what you are doing is proposing murder of young, innocent children. We know that the children are healthy without these shots, and now you are advocating for genocide of our children. So I hope you'll think carefully about that. And the other thing I want to address quickly, because I didn't have a chance yesterday, is the equity. We came here as immigrants. We worked for everything we had. We put blood, sweat, and tears into the last 30-something years to live the American dream, and now you're just giving handouts to people who come in, open borders, and handouts to everybody with our hard-earned tax money and our hard-earned dollars. Do you think that's okay? I just want you all to dig deep within your souls, if you really still have any souls, and see what you're doing. You're traumatizing children, you're advocating for their deaths, and you sit here and you say, we need to keep vaccinating people. I know 3 people who've died from this injection, and I can tell you that other people know more.
We'll hear from the next speaker.
Audra. So I wonder, Nora, is it that she's not from Mexico and that's why being an immigrant doesn't matter? Who knows? Yeah, so you got a COVID report yesterday. I hope you guys are going to read it because you seem to pay attention to what Wilma Wooten has to say. But this report is constantly worked on. It's always being updated with current information. So I hope that you could take a look at it and really take into consideration the fact that you guys want to give these vaccines to people and what it's doing to the population. And if you do care, then you will read it. Even if you think it's false information, there's a bunch of papers and different studies in there, over 150 of them. And then, Jim, yesterday you were saying that Jason can say whatever he wants, but in the same sentence you said, except for, ... So how does that work? If there's like free speech, but then we're saying, but you can't say this, is that contradictory a little bit? A little bit. And it was a little sad that Anthony Ray messed up on his oath, but that was very telling. Pretty sure he's taken it a few times in his life, but that's cool. And I meant to address the other agenda item, but I forgot, lucky you guys. But 1,100 homes for low-income families, you want to give them voucher programs. I just hope that 11,000 of them are actually going to be able to access this help in a timely manner because, you know, they're probably in a crisis and need help right away, but the way help comes isn't always in the manner of, you know, swiftness, like you guys get your money, so thanks. And Jonathan Peck for sheriff. Jonathan Peck for San Diego sheriff. He's the only one that's going to change things.
Good morning. My name is Sylvia. I know that my subject is probably going to bore everybody, but if you will just please stay with me for my short 2 minutes. I'm not here to blame anybody for what we're going through or what's happening in our world today. My topic is about Agenda 21, the New World Order, and the Great Reset. There are 3 titles that are very important that we should really listen to. One of them is global, and all of this is documented on websites, on the Great Reset pages. Global governance. This is all about global governance. Not government, but governance. These people are not elected. They want to take control of our lives. We're talking about people like Fauci, Gates, the WHO. There's another really important subject called sustainable development. This is not about recycling. It's control of the means of production. Sustainable means everything must go to save the planet. Page 350 of the UN's Global Biodiversity Assessment Report. Livestock, including cows, sheep, goats, and horses. No more farming, no more organic foods and necessary proteins for healthy humans. The Biodiversity Treaty presented to world leaders and being implemented in America now as we speak is a transformation into centralized control of food production, property, housing and land, medical and social care, energy, water, every aspect of our lives. Doesn't this sound like communism? It's not going to go under the term of communism. It's going to be technocracy. Technocracy means it's a means of governance. It's the science of social engineering.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Dean Spooner, San Diego resident forever, representing the old people that don't go on the internet and know how to find out anything about these meetings, how it's going on. But I'm here because I was here yesterday and I came in late, so I didn't have a chance to sign up or learn how to play the game. So you were standing up here and approving $78,000 funding for a picture. I believe it's for the San Diego Auto Museum, the new one they want to build, which they're working on, and having a big gala to raise money, $10,000 a table. Of course, that, you know, all the car guys in San Diego will be there. The only car guys that are going to be there is Doug Papa Manchester. He's honored guest. I know Doug. I knew him when he first got married to Betsy Cunningham. I was Rug Cunningham's best friend. So I know Doug. And he's a jerk, but he's your jerk. Well, not your jerk, because he supports, well, we won't go into that. I don't have time. Anyway, I'm just real upset that you approved 5-0 that picture and the funding. Show me the car. Show me the inclusive Mexicans and blacks and Filipinos and the innovators that created CAE Automotive in Lemon Grove that invented the quick change in and out box for race cars, and Championship Rear End, and Lenco, who built transmissions that dominated stock car racing, drag racing, excuse me. You know, CAE, I mean, just totally, you are all ignorant of cars. So I know cars. I was born in cars. I belong to 7 car clubs. I'm president of car clubs, and I was sick. I am going to go to every car club in San Diego, and I started last night at the Porsche Club.
Thank you. Now we will hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. And again, I would like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We will begin with our first caller. And again, if you could please state your name before beginning your comments.
Hi, my name is Carol Green, and I want to bring your attention to the way that big businesses support corporations and things that sound like a good idea at the time. What I'm first talking about is the corporate online gambling proposition that's before us, where out-of-state gambling corporations are promoting a deceptive proposition to legalize online sports gambling across California and turning virtually every cell phone or tablet and computer into a gambling device. This proposition has several problems. It falsely masquerades as a solution to homelessness. Lots of propositions falsely masquerade as a solution to something else. It exposes our kids to online gambling. It hurts California Indian tribes, and it shortcuts schools and critical state priorities and doesn't give them the tax dollars promised. I want to warn the Board of Supervisors and county residents of the potential of good intentions being exploited by big business and deep pockets. The county is now taking steps to develop a socially equitable cannabis program. That's what they're calling it. But be aware that big businesses are also interested in this. Big tobacco and big marijuana are behind a lot of these programs. They start out calling themselves socially equitable, and as small businesses get bought out by big business, all of a sudden we don't have a socially equitable program. Also, I want to let you know that I work with parents throughout the county and throughout the state, and I've just come from the CASA conference, which is the California African American Superintendents Conference. I did a workshop on family engagement, and all of the parents in that conference wanted to make sure that their children and their students had opportunities that were global opportunities and upwardly mobile opportunities. They didn't want to be classified into a set business, particularly a drug business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will go to our next caller.
Hi, good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm KB Strange. I'm a pharmacist practicing in the unincorporated area of the county. A heads up for you today that this week is National Public Health Week, and the theme this year is Public Health is Where You Are. Public Health Alliance of Southern California is launching Healthy Places Index. It's a data platform designed to make important public health data more accessible to the communities that need it most. It's the hope of the Healthy Places Index to become a go-to data tool using a health equity lens which can direct community dollars. Healthy Places Index is building an evidence database for what works to reduce substance abuse. That would be alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. Healthy Places Index has made recommendations for patients under the age of 25 using cannabis, which include the need for age and ID verification on marijuana deliveries, where none exist now, a ban on unproven health and therapeutic claims, restrictions on products that appeal to youth, and finally, recognition of the interconnectedness of persons under the age of 25 of marijuana consumption and mental health problems. Initial data also indicates that the smoking of high-potency cannabis is a very different problem than the wild-grown marijuana of the past. Eventually, Healthy Places Index hopes to have a data set of tens of millions of people worldwide who smoke and vape cannabis like they have for tobacco. They hope to be able to answer the question, how is cannabis linked to lung disease, mental health problems, cardiovascular disease, and various cancers? So thank you for listening this morning. And I hope that all of us, especially our children, enjoy a healthy tomorrow.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Mary D. here. I am calling in to speak today to touch on some things that happened at yesterday's meeting. I arrived at 8:30 a.m. and filled out a slip to speak, but was told I was number 8, which relegated me to speaking at the end of the meeting. I later thought I might be able to get into the first 5 calling queue to get heard at the beginning, so I tried that, but was told by a staff member this was not allowed. I'd already committed to teleconferencing, so could not use that as an option for in person. There are a few things troubling about this, but first and foremost was my primal sense of urgency urgency in feeling the need to get heard at the beginning of the meeting because, quite frankly, two of the supervisors have a very noticeable habit of sneaking out early and often arriving late. This was evidenced at the March 15th meeting where 10 or more of us had patiently waited the entire day to speak and address the board at the end. But when it was time for us to finally get our chance to be heard, two of the supervisors chose to cut out early, leaving us speaking to 3/5 of the board. Then when reviewing the videos from Wednesday, the 16th, the meeting protocols, I saw that Vargas arrived a few minutes late and Lawson Reamer got there quite a bit later, again missing all but the tail end of the very last non-agenda comment speaker for that morning. I realize you're people like us and that occasionally things do come up, but in my short time of being more deeply involved in these meetings, the attendance of these two supervisors has caused me grave concern, questioning whether we are getting true representation from them. When does life happen turn into job neglect? Imagine my surprise last night to see the supervisor who couldn't take time to listen to me at the meeting, then later hobnobbing at a post-election event for Georgette Gomez. Please devote your energy and attention to your job. Be fully present and listen to we the people. The message you sent yesterday was loud and clear. Partisan politics and cronyism first, we the people last. Thank you.
Thank you. We will hear from our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Mark Wilcox. I am a father and grandfather who has a personal interest in the health and safety of the unincorporated county citizens. I recently participated in one of the listening sessions facilitated by the county's consultant regarding marijuana businesses in the backcountry. I had the following concerns. I attended the March 9 listening session, and it was held at Imperial Avenue in San Diego, nowhere near unincorporated lands, and those who were in attendance lived in the city of San Diego. This seems to undermine the county's effort to receive opinions from those in the backcountry. I noted that the March 29 session was held in La Jolla, and the April 7 session will be in National City again. Missed opportunities to hear from those where pot businesses would be located. Also, I felt that people of color aren't being asked for what they would like as reparations for their disproportionate arrest and incarceration for drug sales and transportation. They are only being given one choice for reparations, operating a pot business. I wondered if people of color are being used as a front for marijuana businesses that just want to have more pot marketplaces in neighborhoods already impacted by too many liquor stores and tobacco stores. In general, I wondered if it is wise to call the social justice listening sessions justice in the 420 industry, when the 420 has a very negative connotation and is considered drug jargon by youth today. Perhaps we could and should do better. Thank you.
Thank you. We will hear from our 10th and final caller for the morning session.
Hi, my name is Barbara Gordon. As California legal cannabis market matures and expands, there is an urgent need for more clear, accurate, and comprehensive health information for California cannabis consumers. To address this important issue, on Monday, the Cannabis Right to Know Act, SB 1097, was passed by the California Assembly Business and Professional Committee that would require the State Department of Public Health to create a single-page flat or folded brochure that includes steps for safer use of cannabis and the set of health warnings required for all labels. This bill will provide accurate, visible, and science-based health and safer use information. Lack of public awareness of the health risks by California teens ages 12 to 17 has increased significantly. Awareness of the harms is already low and continues to decline. The National Academy of Science concluded cannabis use is associated with motor vehicle accidents, psychosis, and schizophrenia. Cannabis use during adolescence is especially risky to the developing brain, particularly use of the high THC. 83% of Americans think where cannabis is legal, labels should help them identify safe, legal products. Current warnings fail to protect consumers. They do not mention the risk of cannabis products, including mold, pesticides, metals, or unsafe additives. This bill will provide accurate, visible, and science-based health and safer information. I would urge the Board of Supervisors to write a letter of support for SB 1097 for the health and safety and welfare of all residents. Thank you.
Thank you. For the remaining callers that requested to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, please hang up and call back at the conclusion of the session. Chair Fletcher, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the statement of proceedings minutes for the regular meeting of March 16, 2022. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Please vote.
Oh, it's doing it again. Okay, we'll do roll call. Supervisor Anderson. Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Vice Chair Vargas. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar. Members of the public will be able to comment on consent calendar once supervisors had an opportunity to pull any items and make any comments. We'll start with Supervisor Anderson.
Time, thank you.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Desmond.
Yeah, none to pull, but two quick comments if I could. Item 2, this is the Borrego Springs Shadeway and Pedestrian Improvement Project. I want to say thank you to Parks and Public Works and our park staff for all the great work on these projects. The residents of Borrego Springs are going to really benefit from these pedestrian improvements and shadeway structures, sidewalks, crosswalks, ADA ramps, and so forth, which will also help strengthen the sense of connectiveness with the county park and the county library with the community. Also wanted to highlight how great a job that staff did communicating with the residents of Borrego, bringing them in into the design process and keeping them engaged and let them know what was going on. From holding virtual webinars, they set out over 2,200 bilingual flyers to folks in that area. Working with the community sponsor group, the Art Institute, it's clear that the effort and the outreach was very well received from the community, and I wanted to let our staff know that the people of Borrego Springs and I are very, very appreciative of that effort. On item 4, this is the Butterfield Trails Ranch potential park site. I want to thank all the residents of Valley Center for their time and energy to get this potential park site on our radar. Without their input and enthusiasm, we might not be exploring the possibility of acquiring that site today. But thanks to the Parks Department and Luge and all those who've worked with us on this particular site. Appreciate the teamwork and look forward to continuing working with everyone on this potential park site in Valley Center. Thank you very much. And I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make a comment on item number 3. This agreement with the state for the beach and bay water quality monitoring program is essential for our region, especially with the South County Enhanced Beach Water Monitoring Program. The public health crisis of the sewage problem at the Tijuana River Valley has left our beach access very limited in communities south of the 8th Freeway. 2015, the Tijuana River Valley shoreline had 210 beach closures. In 2021, the Tijuana River Valley shoreline was closed for 246 days, showing an increase in the past 6 years. And programs like this are going to allow us to keep track on this data and collect information for us to bring more resources and solutions to the region. So I want to just thank DHQ for administering this program in the County of San Diego, and thank you for the update. I also understand there are some concerns with future projections on the county's ability to meet the current goals set by SANDAG, especially, on this particular item. So I wanted to say thank you for all the great work on this. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I will second the motion. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by myself to approve items 1 through 4 on consent. Let me call forward the public speakers at this time.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We do have 4 total requests to speak, 3 individuals in person and 1 requesting to speak by phone. Any members of the public that did request to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. But we will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I would like to invite forward the following individuals: Levon Norwood, Wayne Hilbig, and Audra. You will have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please again begin by stating your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Levon Norwood. I'm with the Valley Center Community Planning Group and the chair of the Valley Center Community Planning Group Parks and Rec Subcommittee. I'm speaking this morning as a resident of Valley Center since 1978. I'd like to start my comment by saying thank you to Supervisor Desmond and the rest of this board for giving the Valley Center area so much attention and funding recently. Valley Center sure does deserve it, and we need it desperately, so thank you. In the 2021-2022 County of San Diego's budget under capital improvements, this board has set aside $70 million for parks. The decision before you this morning will cost $0 of those dollars, so that's a great thing. If found feasible for the county, I would hope to think that a small portion of that $70 million could go towards the acquisition of the Butterfield Trails Ranch and used to add to our park services. The property is a stunning 60 acres of breathtaking land that offers a lot of diversity. Moose Creek on one side has its own ecosystem, and it's very different from the stunning pond area on the other side. I'm a grandmother and have great grandkids. I would love the opportunity to be able to sit with them, have a picnic, walk around the property, and just enjoy nature. I also would think that it would be great property one day for possible intergeneration, but that's a different meeting. Today, I'm respectfully requesting that the board vote yes for a feasibility study to purchase this land at Butterfield Trails. If purchased, it will be a great gem for generations to come. Thank you.
My name is Wayne Hilbig. I simply want to thank the board for authorizing an initial study of Butterfield Trails Ranch in Valley Center. I think it'll be very interesting, and I thank you all for that.
Audra, so road tax for 2,000 centerline miles of public roads. Do we not already pay taxes on roads? I don't know, it's just another way to get more money. And a quarter-mile stretch of shade structure for quite a lot of money. Is that even gonna be completed? I hope so. I mean, almost $2 million. That's a lot of money for shade. Beach water testing. So is letting illegal immigrants going to cause the water that's happening in Tijuana to need to be tested more places? Who knows? Nora would know, right? Nora doesn't pay attention. And then 60 acres for public park in Butterfield Trails Ranch. The idea is nice, but I also feel like you guys want to take up our land, which is a little scary because you don't want us to be in unincorporated areas. You kind of want to dictate where people can live because you think they want to work where they live. Some people might, some people don't. Some people like to live in the middle of nowhere. But I just wonder, how long would it even take you to do this? I mean, you were supposed to be starting construction here for different things. When's that going to happen? Never? You just get money to pretend like you're going to do stuff? I hope you guys do, because that'd be nice. People could come. They already do yoga at the park. But it just seems like, I don't know, you guys aren't good at completing projects, so it's a concern to even just take up 60 acres of land that somebody else could actually use.
Thank you. Now we will hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Dolores Chavez Harms, Chair of the Valley Center Community Planning Group Esteemed Board of Supervisors, the Valley Center Community Planning Group has received an overwhelming response in support of the addition of 59 acres to be used as parkland in San Diego County. The Butterfield Trails Ranch Park complies 100% with the existing Valley Center Community Plan and received unanimous support from the Valley Center Community Planning Group at our December 13th, 2021 meeting. Preserving the natural beauty of this site is consistent with Valley Center's character of rural country living. Additionally, by the county's own admission, Valley Center is underserved for parks given our population and planned continued growth. The addition of Butterfield Trails Ranch Park would be a benefit for the entire county. That would provide walking and hiking trails, a safe riding trail for horses, bird watchers' paradise, picnic areas away from traffic and noise, and not to mention the benefit of decreased health costs by encouraging exercise. We understand the county has already begun the process of investing in and improving Star Valley Park with the idea of this being the site for an intergenerational center. There has also been discussion to consider Butterfield Trails Ranch Park as an alternative for the intergenerational center. However, after reviewing the hundreds of requests and communications we have received from our community, the majority of our residents have expressed their desire to keep Butterfield Trails Ranch Park in its natural state as much as possible. For this reason, the Valley Center Community Planning Group, Intergenerational Center, and Valley Center, thank you. Dolores Chavez Harms, Chair, Valley Center Community Planning Group.
Thank you, and Chair Fletcher, that is going to go ahead and conclude public comment on this item.
Motion by Supervisor Desmond, seconded by myself, to approve items 1 through 4 on consent. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll go to our first agenda item number 5, Traffic Advisory Committee adopt recommendations. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Let me ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers in this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We did have one request to speak on this item, and that one request is individual in person. I'd also like to note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments for this item. We will begin with the in-person speakers. Those as your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward Audra.
Audra, Traffic Advisory Committee. So you want to make sure people follow the laws, that's nice and all, but are you going to be using cameras? I see a lot of more cameras out that are monitoring people. No? That's good, because they're out there. But it's this whole Tell Us Now mobile app, reports of traffic concerns. Is that kind of like tattletale on your neighbor if they're not following the COVID policies? Call in, and it's like we're being told to kind of police each other. It's a little weird. That's not our job. We shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, so I would like to take the rest of my time for all those who died from the COVID vaccines.
Your time is off topic.
No,
Your
it
comments
isn't.
need to be restricted.
I can
need to
take
be
the rest of
around
my
item
time.
5. You're off topic.
I am not.
Is
So
your
you're
second
going to
warning,
disrespect
your
all
comments
the
are off topic
people
on
that
agenda
died.
Item 5.
What?
It's your second warning. Your comments are off topic. You need to speak to the agenda. and
They
Traffic
were
Advisory Board
on topic.
Twice.
They were on topic. Nathan, that's rude. That's really messed up, that you can't even respect the people that have died.
Do you have comments on item number 5, Traffic Advisory?
I did, yeah.
Do you
I
have any
did.
additional ones on item 5?
I do.
Please make them or your time will be forfeited.
Okay.
Not seeing any comments on the traffic advisory, we'll forfeit the remainder of your time. We've got a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. May I ask the clerk to please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Supervisor Desmond. Aye. Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Next item for our consideration is item number 6, formation of the Piper Otay CFD. I'm going to hand it over to the clerk of the board who will walk us through the procedures for this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Today's action to form Community Facilities District number 2022-01 includes a notice protest hearing. Upon the close of the protest hearing, it will be determined whether or not a valid protest has been made. If a majority protest is not received by the board, if it is not received, the board may proceed to take action from the district and call an election to impose a special tax in the district. Anyone wishing to protest the formation of the district should come forward at this point. Protests may be made orally, but must be in writing if someone wishes to protest the regular or sufficiency of these proceedings, and must also clearly specify the defect to which the objection is made. Written protests may be submitted on a speaker slip, if not separately provided to the clerk. Subject to any questions, it would now be appropriate to take public comment.
All right, let's hear from any public speakers on item 6.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We did have 2 requests to speak. The person on the phone is the attorney consultant here for any questions. Otherwise, I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Audrey, you're so disrespectful. And then would you call in the sheriff just because of that? I mean, that's disgusting. Special tax, preserve, maintenance, community facilities, obtain funding from property owners. So you're going to make the property owners pay for facilities or services. And this has to do with the habitat of a burrowing owl. So you're going to make people pay to preserve the life of an owl. And other California species of special concern. So 1.57% tax you're going to make these people pay when the housing prices are already outrageous. For an owl, for birds. For birds. That's good. Does that not seem ridiculous to you? You want to preserve the life of birds while people are dying and you can't even respect them and honor them, but you want to honor, you know, other people. I mean, it's a bit ridiculous. You don't see, like, how weird that is? You're just not going to answer because you would just want to reprimand me. That's how you answer, but you won't answer a simple question. How is preserving the life of an owl greater than preserving the lives of human beings? That's disturbing. And you probably all took that COVID report and threw it away. It's so disgusting.
Chair Fletcher, that is going to conclude public comment on this item. I'd also like to note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments on this item.
All right, there being no valid protests received, the protest hearing will be closed. The clerk will declare the results of the protest hearing.
The territory is the district. The territory in the district is uninhabited, so that a protest may only be made by the landowners in the district. A valid majority protest can only arise if the owners of 1/2 or more of the land subject to a tax object to the formation of the district. The owners of more than half the acreage subject to tax did not submit a protest. Accordingly, there was no majority protest. And the board may proceed to take action on recommendations number 1 through 3 to form the district and call an election to impose a special tax.
At this point, I'll make a motion to approve recommendations 1 through 3. Is there a second? I have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. And Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
I'm going to ask the clerk to please open the ballot provided by the property owner and declare the election results.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. All votes were in favor of imposing the special tax. Your board may take action on recommendations number 4 and 5 to declare the result of the special tax election and to introduce an ordinance to establish the special tax.
Make a motion to approve recommendations 4 and 5. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you again, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer? Aye. Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas? Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll move to agenda item number 7, notice public hearing cost recovery proposal to adopt ordinance related to fees and deposits of the Department of Environmental Health and Quality effective fiscal year 22-23. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Anderson. Let me ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers in this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We did have one request to speak. That is individual in person. I'd also like to note for the record that we did not receive any e-comments on this item. With that being said, I'd like to invite forward Audra, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Audra, of course you voted that through. It's preserve the life of an owl. Probably doesn't even exist, I bet.
Do you have any comments on agenda
I
item
do.
7?
I do, Nathan.
Comments are off topic first.
Oh, stop. Jeez. Got your panties in a wad. Yeah, so environmental health and quality fees. This is all about fees today. It's great. And hourly rates for services for food, pools, housing, body art, massage, organic or organized camp programs. That's a little terrifying. And medical waste, wells, septic, small water systems. Solid waste, local enforcement agency to check plans for radiological health program and services. What is that about? But you have 40 programs that prevent disease, promote environmental responsibility, enforced environmental and public health laws. Yeah, you want to regulate restaurants, public swimming pools, body art. I mean, what is all of this crap? You're going to have fees that people have to pay in order to get all that. And then you want to reduce the risk of disease carried by rats and mosquitoes. You know they released, Bill Gates did, mosquitoes that were genetically modified in Florida and California. Are you going to look for those? Probably not. You probably are part of it. And then clean up meth and fentanyl contaminated properties. There's a 2.6 increase of fees that you're making people pay for this stuff. That's a problem. Do you not see that? Like, we already pay to have all this stuff done, and now you want us to pay more. It's great. It's great. Does that go into your pocket, Nathan? Probably.
Chair Fletcher, that will conclude public comment on this item.
Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you very much, Chair. On this item, again, I want to thank staff. I see that streamlining and efficiency efforts have actually offset to a significant degree some of these increased costs and fees for our customers. Although I hate to see fees go up, with inflation and everything else, our fees have to go up, and along with the price of everything here these days. But this is kudos to staff for coming up with internal efficiencies to help keep our billable fees down. And I think, having a positive offsetting effect on rising fees and this practice, happening through DEHQ and hopefully through all the other departments that, we actually offer a better service and it has a positive impact on the people that actually have to pay these increases. If they can see, hey, but you're being more efficient in other ways, that's a great way to present it. So thank you very much for doing it. And encourage every department that wants to raise fees to show how they're bettering their service and efficiencies. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. We have a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Anderson to approve item 7. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer? Aye. Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas? Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present, voting aye.
We'll go to agenda number 8, cost recovery proposal. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a Motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk call forward any public speakers in this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Again, we have one request to speak in person. And again, I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
You pass everything. Cost recovery for fees of Department of Agriculture with pest exclusion, direct marketing, industrial hemp cultivation, verification of agriculture. 1.7% increase. Like, you guys just keep, you realize we pay for everything already. And you just want to keep taking money from people when you're saying, I mean, there is inflation, yeah, but it's happening because it's intentional. Like, the gas prices don't have to be this high. And nor do house prices. And nor should people even pay taxes anymore, I guess, because you guys take it and then want more money from us. Here, we're going to use your money to buy this, but then we're also going to ask you for more money in the long term. It's ridiculous. Not until it affects you guys do you care. Will it affect your pocket when your bonds are accessed? Probably not. But when you're sued on an independent, personal basis, it will. Because that will come from your pocket, Nathan. You might lose that house in Big Bear because of it. Federal statutes are in place to protect people like this. Because you want to take our money, we'll take all of yours.
Chair Fletcher, again, I'd just like to note for the record that we didn't receive any e-comments, and that will conclude public comment on this item.
Motion by myself, seconded by Vice Chair Vargas. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson. Aye. Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Good. Agenda item number 9, cost recovery proposal. I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Lawson-Remer. May I ask the clerk to call forward any public speakers in this item?
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have one total request to speak, that one person being in person. Again, I'd like to invite forward Audra to the podium, and then you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Audra, land use or land development fees, land cost recovery, environmental projects, enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors in the unincorporated area. 2.9% increase, love it. And use energy-saving materials. And the fees are paid by private-initiated land development projects and building permit applicants. It's good. So these energy-saving materials that are toxic, is this your whole Agenda 21, 2030 World Economic Forum crap, Nathan? Tara? Soros? What? You're good. You're just smiling because you guys don't even pay attention. But yeah, you need to quit costing us money. That's all you guys do.
Again, Chair Fletcher, I'd like to note for the record we did not receive any e-comments, and that will conclude public comment on this item.
Motion by myself, second by Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We're going to go to agenda item number 10, ordinance amendments to establish procedures for closing inactive permit applications. Before I turn it over to staff for a presentation, I want to thank them for the work that's gone into this. We have a lot of efforts going around housing, realigning what we're doing, figuring out how we can be most efficient, and I think this is a good item to be brought forward and look forward to the presentation and discussion. So with that, I will turn it over to our team for their presentation.
Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. My name is Angelica Trong. Today, Nathan Kling and I will be presenting an item number 10, ordinance amendments to establish procedures for the closing of inactive permit applications. These changes to the County Code would regulate how proposed projects are handled when the applicant applies for a permit to develop but does not complete the materials needed for the county to make a decision on the project, such as plans, studies, and other technical documents. These are called inactive projects. Today's action would replace Board Policy I-137, processing inactive projects. Today, the Board of Supervisors will consider whether to establish a new process for inactive projects. In November 2019, Policy I-137 on processing inactive projects was reviewed by the Board as part of the county sunset review process during the sunset review process. Board policies that are due to expire are reviewed to see whether they should be retained, how they can be improved, or if they should be allowed to expire. As part of this process, the Board directed PDS to draft amendments to the county zoning ordinance and county subdivision ordinance to outline a new process for inactive projects, which would replace a Board policy. The Board's direction was to establish that an active project be withdrawn after 2 years of inactivity, with the opportunity for 2 additional 2-year extensions or a total of up to 6 years in inactive status. Board Policy I-137 is set to expire on April 30th, 2022. The land development process is complex and typically requires multiple cycles of design and review. Sometimes permit applications can become inactive during the process when the applicant has not made progress to complete the project for several years. Certain permits are considered discretionary and require consideration by a decision maker like the county's Plan Commission or Board of Supervisors and take several years to complete. A project is considered inactive when the applicant has not submitted the materials requested by county staff necessary to review a project, such as environmental studies, updated plans, or funds required to continue processing the project. The purpose of having a process for managing inactive permits is to provide community members with certainty regarding the timing and status of development projects. It allows the county to more effectively track and manage projects that are currently in process by establishing clear procedures for when projects become inactive. It reduces the cost of managing inactive projects, which includes limiting charges to applicants who are not currently able to process projects due to financial limitations or other external factors, as well as reducing the potential costs to the county to move projects forward for denial due to inactivity. It also helps the county reduce staff time towards managing inactive projects. Inactive projects are currently processed according to Board Policy I-137, titled Processing Inactive Projects, which was enacted on October 21st, 2009. Under Board Policy I-137, projects are placed in idle status when the county has not received information necessary to continue processing a project for 12 months. When a project is placed in idle status, the application is put on administrative hold, the Planning and Development Services or PDS project manager is removed from the project, and the project files are retained in an idle status library. After a project is in idle status for 2 years, it can be sent to the appropriate decision maker for denial. Alternately, the director of PDS may grant an extension upon request by the applicant. Under the proposed new process, a project is inactive if the applicant has not submitted the information and/or funds necessary to continue processing the project within 12 months. The project may then stay inactive for 2 years. After a project has been inactive for 2 years, the applicant must submit the requested information or request an extension, otherwise the project will be automatically withdrawn. PDS will notify the applicant by phone, email, and mail notice 60 days prior to the date the permit would be automatically withdrawn. If the applicant requests an extension, it may stay inactive for an additional 2 years for a total of 4 years. At the end of the first extension, the applicant may apply for a final 2-year extension if there are extenuating circumstances applicable to the project. Extenuating circumstances include events or requirements that are out of the control of the applicant, such as requirements or review from other government agencies like Army Corps of Engineers or the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the need to complete studies during a specific time period, such as a seasonal biological survey or traffic counts during a school year, new environmental issues that affect the project, and financial hardships such as loss of financing, change in circumstances affecting a loan, or unanticipated and/or extraordinary costs. If the applicant does not request a final 2-year extension, the permit would be automatically withdrawn. At the end of the second extension, the applicant must submit the requested information or the permit would be automatically withdrawn.
This new process for inactive projects would be different from the current process. Rather than charging applicants for staff time to prepare reports and perform other work to bring inactive projects forward for denial, as is required under the current process, projects would be automatically withdrawn by PDS under the new process, saving applicants money. The new process includes a maximum amount of time, up to 6 years, for a project to be inactive, whereas there is no defined maximum time frame under the current policy. The new process provides additional clarity by defining extenuating circumstances and when a final extension can be granted. The new procedure would also include notice to the community planning or sponsor group when a project is reactivated. There are existing inactive projects that would be subject to the new process if adopted. As part of this effort, staff conducted outreach to the applicants for the 123 projects that are currently inactive. Of these projects, 81 were withdrawn by the applicant, 2 were reactivated by the applicant, and 13 were brought forward for denial due to a lack of response from the applicant after multiple attempts to contact them by PDS. PDS attempted to contact the applicants multiple times by phone, email, and certified mail. As of March 2022, there are 27 remaining inactive projects. 13 of these projects received extensions under the current process, and 14 requested to reactivate their project but have yet to submit the information necessary to move forward. The 27 existing inactive projects would be eligible for additional extensions allowed under the new process for a total of 6 years. At the conclusion of the 6 years, the projects would be automatically withdrawn if the information requested is not provided. Staff also reviewed the 27 projects to determine how they align with the board direction related to vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. Of the 27 existing inactive projects, 6 would not have to do VMT analysis or mitigation because they have less than 110 average daily trips, a screening criteria which was based on state guidance. These 6 projects include a total of 22 homes. 3 of the 6 projects are also located with the infill areas as identified by the board, with a total of 14 homes. The new process for inactive projects was advertised for a public review period from September 30th, 2021 to October 25th, 2021. Over 600 stakeholders, including consultant firms, agencies, tribes, and jurisdictions, were noticed as part of this effort. Staff conducted several public outreach meetings to gather stakeholder feedback, including 6 stakeholder meetings, including the Community Planning and Sponsor Group Chairs meeting, the Land Development Technical Working Group, the Building Industry Association, the Farm Bureau, and various environmental groups. Staff also reached out to all tribal governments and community planning and sponsor groups within the unincorporated area to provide further information on the proposed process. Staff conducted follow-up meetings with the Crestaheza Community Planning Group and Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians upon their request. Staff received 3 comment letters from stakeholders stating that the total 6 years of extensions is too long and should be reduced. In addition, the Crestaheza Community Planning Group requested that if a project has been inactive for more than 2 years and is being reactivated, that the applicable community planning or sponsor group should be notified. County staff will require public notification for all projects that are reactivated after being inactive, including to the applicable planning or sponsor group. On January 21st, 2022, the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the new inactive process to the Board of Supervisors, which includes amendments to the subdivision and zoning ordinances. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors find that the ordinance amendments to establish procedures for the closing of inactive permit applications are exempt from CEQA, adopt the ordinance amending the county subdivision ordinance for inactive permits, and adopt the ordinance amending the county zoning ordinance for inactive permits. This concludes our presentation, and we are available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Good job. Appreciate that. Let me ask the clerk to call forward any speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We do have 2 total requests to speak, 2 individuals in person and 0 requesting to speak by phone. I would like to invite forward Peng Tan and Audra to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could again, please begin by stating your name for the record.
Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peng Tan. I'm the project owner for the TM5261. I object to any attempt to terminate any project because the housing is extremely expensive in San Diego County, and there's a lack of housing in all of California. So any attempt to terminate any projects would only resulting a lot of people cannot afford to buy a house. And like for example, let me explain to you why termination of project would reduce the number of housing. My project right now is entitled to 40 lot maximums, but because due to downzoning of the land, so if they terminate a project, I'll lose my grandfather in status, and the land only entitled to 8 lots. And for that reason, I object to any attempt to termination the project. I think the government, should spend more time, try to help the landowner to develop the land, not to set the more and more regulations and rules, try to object to the projects. Right now, there are too many regulations. The new CEQA laws, the VMT laws, and the water collection law. All this law is already obstructing my project. I already spent my life saving of $500,000 project for many years and not making progress, very little progress. Besides that, I have other reason, so I had to put this project on the idle status. I got a heart attack from this project about 2.5 years ago. Also separate from my wife. She got all the cash. And this land is very difficult to develop, so hard for me to find investors to take over this project. Also the COVID delay for 2 years. Can I speak because he speaks for so long? Let me speak for a few minutes.
No, sir, I'm sorry.
Because they have to speak for half an hour.
But he works for the county and your public comment. We appreciate it. We've taken to heart your point. Next speaker, please.
So you want me to leave?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sorry.
You don't have to leave. You're welcome to stay. You just can't stay at the podium.
I'll come and talk to you sometime.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Audra, so, I mean, my comments are kind of along the lines of that, is that, are these, how much of your COVID policies have to do with these projects being idle and not being able to be completed? And if you continue to change the regulations or things that are required, then how are these people going to keep up with that? And then I wonder, are you trying to keep some projects from going forward because you see a better use for whatever that is, or you want to come in and, keep people from progressing? Because how many people have had a loss of jobs, money? What's so funny, Nathan? You gonna crack up? That's funny. So you guys can make fun of people. Oh, you're just... That's why you don't even take anything seriously.
Do you have any additional comments on agenda item 10?
But I'm commenting on the fact that you're laughing.
I'm not laughing. Your comments are
Not
off
right
topic.
now, you're not.
You laughing is off topic. You need to restrict your comments to agenda item 10, please.
My laughing is off topic?
Your comments are off topic. Second warning.
Your laughing is totally rude. You're just super disrespectful. Do you think that you're like holier than thou?
Do you have any comments on agenda item 10?
Yeah.
Please revert.
What's your part in that?
Item number 10.
How many people have you denied? Oh, well, you go build a house somewhere. And then these people's livelihoods are at stake, but why would you care? You think this is a joke? It's great. You're a disgrace.
Real quick question for staff, just to clarify. If an applicant, a developer, a property owner wants to have their project continue, they have that option. They can certainly do that. This would not force people into inactive status. It would just provide a mechanism to allow projects that are not moving forward to go. Is that correct?
Chair Fletcher, that's correct. And for this particular person that spoke today, they'll have the opportunity to get those 6 years of extension that we put into this ordinance, so that'll apply to their project as well.
Cool. There you go. Supervisor Desmond?
Thank you for asking that question, Chair. That was one of my questions. But is it expensive to keep your, to ask for extensions? Does it cost a bunch of money, or you just have to have some valid reasons, or what?
Supervisor Desmond, no, it's not expensive. We just need a written request from the developer explaining why they need the extension, and then they're placed into inactive status, and we get those additional years. The last extension, the final 2 years, they do have to meet the criteria for the extenuating circumstances. So it has to be something that's outside of their control, or some sort of financial issue related to like loss of financing, something like that. They'd have to provide some evidence to demonstrate that they meet that criteria, then they'd be granted those last 2 years of extension.
So the intention here is not to shut down any projects or to get somebody out that has some grandfathered rights or anything like that. It's basically just if they're not doing anything, and you're going to make every attempt to contact people to before anything gets shut down. I think it's I'll be supporting the item, so I think it's good. But just make that effort so people like the speaker don't get left out. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Is it posted on the website, or how would somebody know if they weren't, sometimes people don't have access. And so what are if you could describe all the ways that people could find out this information if they were noticed and wanted to do something about it to protect their interest?
Supervisor Anderson, through the chair, we'll make every effort to contact these individuals to let them know of their options. We provide written correspondence, we call them, we also email them. We have all the contact information that they've provided for all of the folks that are involved in the project. So we'll reach out to the property owner, the applicant, the engineer listed on file, make sure that all those folks are notified of this process. We'll also post this information to our website. We'll put together frequently asked questions as well so that we can hand that out to applicants so that they're well aware of these options that they have.
Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate the effort you're putting into it.
Vice Chair Vargas.
I just wanted to say thank you to staff for doing all this work, and I think the other part that I think was really important, the comments that you made about the community also, this was really important for the community so that they knew whether a project was going to happen or not, because what they hear a lot from the community is whether they just kind of project is just sitting there and they don't know, and there's a lot of confusion sometimes. So I just wanted to say thank you for that and for engaging the community in this process as well. So thank you for that.
All right, I need a motion. And a motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by Supervisor Desmond. Ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Aye. Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present, voting aye.
We will go to agenda item number 11, our 2021 General Plan Annual Progress Report. We will give staff a moment to get settled, and then we'll turn it over to them for presentation.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm Rami Tali, and I'm joined by Davia Lynch, Lynette Tessitore, and Scott Chrisman. Today, we're presenting the General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Report. In addition to addressing state reporting requirements, this year's report explores a potential housing production range to track progress towards addressing the region's housing affordability crisis. The General Plan sets the long-term framework for the unincorporated area's development by establishing goals, objectives, and policies. It is comprised of 7 elements, each of which addresses specific topics such as land use density, open space for conservation and recreation, and safety. The housing element is included in the General Plan. It is updated every 8 years in order to address changing housing needs for all income levels and populations. The housing element must demonstrate that the county has the capacity to accommodate both market rate and affordable housing that meets the needs of the unincorporated area's residents at all income segments and life stages, including special needs populations such as people experiencing homelessness, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. The housing element does not require production of housing, but rather ensures that the county has the capacity to accommodate anticipated growth. In addition, the housing element must address and, where possible, remove constraints to housing development conserve and improve the condition of existing housing stock, and promote housing opportunities for all persons in a manner consistent with the general plan. The Annual Progress Report, or APR, is a state requirement that summarizes the county's progress in implementing the general plan and housing element over the past calendar year. State law requires the APR be provided to the board, the state's Office of Planning and Research, and the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. In addition to what is required by the state, staff provided a progress update on capital improvements and other programs and housing production range in response to the previous board direction. Relying on state guidance, the county's APR highlights several topics. First are the planning and development activities related to implementing the general plan's goals, which could be either county-initiated projects or private developer projects. Second are capital improvement projects, which improve the quality and longevity of county facilities, such as roads, parks, and buildings. And last, the county's progress in meeting its regional housing needs, or RHNA, which is the number of housing units needed to meet regional demand. This is measured in building permits issued over an 8-year period. When building permits are issued, a builder can start the construction of a home. When the building permits are complete, the builder has finished construction of a home and it's ready to be lived in. Progress towards RHNA is reported in terms of building permits issued for new housing units, not building permits completed. Each of these topics will be discussed in more detail on the next few slides.
During calendar year 2021, the board approved a general plan amendment to make required updates to the housing and safety elements and adopted a new environmental justice element. Additionally, 13 private discretionary actions were approved, including one general plan amendment, which was approved to change the allowable residential density, 4 tentative map approvals, which are used to subdivide lots for new housing units, and 5 site plan permits, which are used for multifamily projects and projects that require community design review. These projects approvals included the Smilax Townhome project with 62 attached condominium units and the Alpine Family Apartments project with a mix of 38 low and moderate income units. In total, these 13 items approved 221 new housing units in the unincorporated area. The APR also includes updates on capital improvement projects which support the goals established in various general plan elements. In total, the county completed $128 million in capital improvements during calendar year 2021. 26 infrastructure projects were completed, including road resurfacing, accessibility upgrades, and debris removal from the Valley Fire. These activities support the general plan's mobility element. 22 park improvements were completed, including the Tijuana River Valley Regional Park Campground and Nature Education Center, which support the general plan's open space element. 4 county facility projects were completed, including the North Coastal Crisis Stabilization Unit, which supports the general plan's safety element. The APR also includes the county's progress in meeting its allocation under the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA. RHNA, the number of housing units needed to meet regional demand. Progress is measured in issued building permits during the 8-year housing cycle. For the 6th cycle that began in 2021 and ends in 2029, SANDAG allocated a total of 67 housing units to the unincorporated area, divided into several income categories. In 2021, the county issued building permits for 1,425 housing units. Due to an overlap between housing cycles, the county may take credit for 401 housing units dating back to July 2020 towards the 6th cycle RHNA allocation. In total, since the start of the 6th cycle, the county has issued building permits for 1,826 housing units. As of the end of last year, the county has achieved 27% of the overall 6th cycle RHNA allocation. To help ensure the county achieves its RHNA allocation, the board directed staff to begin developing a variety of programs meant to incentivize housing production for families of all income levels. Staff is currently developing an inclusionary housing ordinance that would create an affordable housing requirement for future market rate housing projects. A small lot subdivision ordinance is being developed, which will promote smaller scale housing, especially in infill areas. This project will incentivize a shift from large lot suburban homes to more affordable, smaller scale homes. Program options are being developed to remove existing barriers for senior housing and assisted living facilities, including revisions to the existing incentive programs and creation of new incentives. Staff is developing a by-right approval program to decrease the time it takes to approve construction of new housing on certain previously identified sites, mixed-use sites, and commercial sites. These 4 projects are expected to return to the board later this fall. Lastly, we are exploring a parcel-by-parcel analysis to better understand the potential for new housing units in the unincorporated region's infill areas. Staff is currently determining a methodology for this research and a list of options. The methodology and options for this analysis will be brought back to the board this summer. Through these programs, the county aims to ensure housing production will continue in the unincorporated region and our RHNA allocation will be achieved for families of all income levels. An additional highlight in 2021 is the county's support of 4 affordable housing projects that were completed. The county-supported projects included the El Cajon Senior Veterans Apartments, the Poway Commons, the Villa de Vida in Poway, the Grove in Vista. In total, these projects added 188 affordable housing units in the San Diego region. Since they were constructed in incorporated cities and received building permits from these cities, the cities get credit for these units under RHNA. County staff is exploring opportunities for the county to receive credit under RHNA for county-supported housing projects in the future.
For this year's APR, the board directed staff to report out on housing production and potentially identify a production goal. As an initial step, we reviewed Sandag's housing forecasts and Sandag's RHNA allocation for the unincorporated region. In December 2021, Sandag published its most recent forecast for regional growth, which is called Series 14. Series 14 includes a baseline forecast, which relies on population projections from the state and land use information from local general plans. The baseline forecast estimates the unincorporated area will grow by 1,370 units each year from 2016 to 2035. Series 14 also includes a Sustainable Community Strategy, or SCS, forecast, which was developed to support Sandag's regional plan. The regional plan is a transportation plan intended to create mobility hubs in transit-oriented communities with a higher concentration of people, destinations, and travel options. The regional plan and SCS forecast aims to reduce GHG emissions and achieve goals established by the state. Under this forecast, the unincorporated area would grow by 390 units each year from 2016 to 2035. It's important to note that the county is developing the Climate Action Plan to reduce GHG emissions, which is separate from Sandag's efforts. We also considered Sandag's 6th-cycle RHNA plan, which is an allocation of housing needs to meet future demand. Spreading the 6,700 units across the 8-year cycle leads to an average RHNA requirement of 840 units per year. During our review of Sandag's data, we identified an inconsistency between Sandag Regional Plan and Sandag's RHNA allocations. Sandag assigned the county its RHNA allocation in 2020, which incentivizes the county to ensure at least 840 housing units are built each year from 2021 to 2029. A year later, at the end of 2021, Sandag adopted its regional plan, which relied on the Series 14 SCS housing forecast. This forecast assumed the county would add 390 housing units each year from 2016 to 2035, which is less than half of what is needed to meet RHNA. On one hand, Sandag is incentivizing the county to ensure at least 840 housing units are built each year. On the other hand, Sandag is forecasting that less than half of those units will be built. This inconsistency has the potential to delay future housing projects and lead to increased studies and permitting costs, which could hinder the county's ability to achieve its RHNA allocation. Staff is coordinating with Sandag, who is responsible for both the regional plan and the RHNA plan, to provide guidance on how the county can maintain consistency with the goals of both programs. To better understand housing production trends, staff investigated and compiled historical data on constructed housing units going back to 2000. This data focuses on constructed units or completed building permits. This is different than RENA, which focuses on issued building permits, not constructed units. To enhance our analysis, we broke down the total units constructed into those from large projects and small projects. Since large projects are permitted differently than small projects, we wanted to analyze them separately. Large projects are those with underlying discretionary permits, such as tentative map approvals and site plan permits. These discretionary housing projects are permitted differently than small projects because they are analyzed for environmental impacts, such as vehicle miles traveled or VMT. Since 2011, there has been an increasing trend of 10% per year in units constructed from large projects with underlying discretionary permits. We also broke down the total housing units constructed into small projects without underlying discretionary permits. These projects typically only require ministerial building permits, which are based on a checklist of items. They do not require additional environmental review and will not be subject to the new VMT regulations. They are faster and less expensive to process, making them preferred by applicants. Since 2011, there has also been an increasing trend of 9.7% in housing units constructed from small projects without underlying discretionary permits. However, if we look at more recent data, we can see a different trend developing. Considering just the last 5 years of data, there has been a decreasing trend of 1.7% in housing units constructed from small projects. Using data for both large and small projects, we were able to generate a housing production range through 2030. This represents staff's estimate of the range of likely scenarios for housing construction in the unincorporated area for the next 8 years. To establish the upper limit, we considered previously approved large discretionary housing projects. Over the past 10 years, the county has approved several projects, such as the Otay 250 project, which have not yet been fully built out. The upper limit assumes all units from these projects would be built during this decade. The upper limit also assumes the small ministerial projects would continue on the upward trend seen since 2011. To establish the lower limit, we assumed small projects would follow the more recent data showing a downward trend over the last 5 years. We also assumed no units from the Otay 250 project would be constructed during this decade. We accommodated the new vehicle miles traveled policies by looking at how they would have impacted historical projects. We estimate only 6 to 10% of previously approved discretionary housing projects would not have been subject to VMT regulations. In turn, we assumed that future housing units constructed under large discretionary projects would be 10% of their historical trend. After creating the housing production range based on historic development trends and approved projects, we then looked at how the SANDAG forecasts and plans measure up against the estimated production range. The Series 14 baseline forecasts the unincorporated area adding approximately 1,370 units per year. The Series 14 Sustainable Community Strategy, or SCS forecast, the unincorporated area adding approximately 390 housing units per year. And lastly, SANDAG's RENA allocation for the unincorporated region leads to a requirement of 840 housing units per year. To summarize, staff has developed a production range using a data-driven approach which can be repeated in future APRs. Relying on a production range is beneficial due to its flexibility and the inherent uncertainty in predicting future events, such as housing construction. For example, developers may learn to navigate the new VMT regulations and take advantage of the county's new housing programs, which may have a positive impact on housing production. For these reasons, staff recommends adopting a production range rather than establishing a production goal, which can be used as a reference point in future years. SANDAG's forecasts and RENA allocation have an annual housing production rate ranging from 390 to 1,370. Staff is coordinating with SANDAG to provide guidance on how the county can maintain consistency with the goals of both SANDAG's RENA plan and the regional plan Series 14 SCS forecast. In closing, staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors accept the 2021 General Plan Annual Progress Report and find that today's actions are not subject to CEQA. This concludes the presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation and the work. Obviously, the issue on the SANDAG numbers is something we'll have to work on to align those two. but I appreciate all that's happened. Let's hear from our public speakers, then we'll come back and we have board member comments and questions on this.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We do have 2 total requests to speak on this item, 1 individual in person and 1 requesting to speak by phone. Also like to note for the record, we did not receive any e-comments on this item. Any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speakers, and I'd like to invite forward Audra. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Audra, so just seems like a lot of units. I don't know where this 171,685 units comes in, because that's quite a lot. I mean, that'll take you forever to complete, but the fact that you're deciding how many units based on even environmental stuff, like you want to save the environment over giving people like a house. So I mean, you'll produce less by saving the environment. Where are all these people going to live in the meantime? Like, especially if you're like expecting like 10 years to complete projects. It's just a little confusing how they're going to actually have a place to live while you guys decide how many you're going to build, how long it's going to take, and they're just supposed to sit idle and wait? Are you going to offer them any other assistance while they're waiting for these projects to be built? While you decide if it's going to be, you know, 390 a year or 1,370? I mean, that's a huge difference. And that will affect a lot of people as far as when they're accessible. And even if you can complete them. I mean, by 2035, I mean, nobody's going to be here if they have to wait that long. They're going to be gone. People are already leaving California because of the astronomical prices. And then you're just like, just wait, it'll be ready in 10 years. You may be dead by then, but we'll complete the project. Good. I hope you don't let these people down like everybody else.
We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted, and then you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller.
Hey, it's Truth. Here's some interesting excerpts from item 11's attachment entitled General Plan BL. So the 2021 General Plan Annual Progress Report states that approximately 25,460 acres of preserved land has been acquired by the county since 1998. The county has invested over $124.9 million in property acquisition. The board unanimously directed staff to prepare the draft North County Conservation Program as a federal habitat conservation plan and state conservation plan. Translation: a lot of land is being transferred to the federal government using excuses like the burrowing owl mentioned in item 16. As part of the PACE program, 2,400 acres were acquired by the county since 2013. Willing agriculture property owners are compensated for placing a perpetual easement on their property that limits future use to agriculture. The county has invested approximately $7.79 million in agricultural easement purchases. Translation: perpetual easement means eternal control of another's property. In this case, it means no homes ever built on the land. Housing will likely occur in infill areas and locations closer to transit, such as small lot residential and multifamily. VMT regulations are anticipated to have an impact on large and single-family housing projects. Translation: that means no rural or suburban single-family homes in San Diego. You know, the American dream of owning your own car and a house for your family? This change is due to the county's decarbonization framework, which is derived from the United Nations Agenda 21 plan. Mark Doring yesterday was right to recommend that people listen to Rosa Corey's videos.
Thank you. Your time is up. Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. We'll go first to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, this one. Yeah, thank you so much. This is really helpful, and obviously, you know, this issue of housing is just so important for everyone across our region. And I appreciate you highlighting the challenges around the SANDAG discrepancy, and so I will definitely be working to see if we can get those in alignment so that we are able to, you know, make our plans in a reasonable way for the county moving forward. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. You had some really useful and interesting slides. I think if you wouldn't mind flipping back to the one, it was a graph about the production under RENA. Let's see, not the range, keep going back. Up, more up, up, up. Yeah, I think that's the one. Let's see. Nope, not that one. It was just an overview of by, it was basically this, it was the slide that said how much we're assigned for like low, very low, low, moderate, high for RENA versus our production. Yep, that one. The 6-cycle RENA progress one, yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, I found this, like, honestly, it was a great presentation, but of everything, I feel like this was sort of the most illuminating and useful slide that we have, and just, it's really helpful for me to better wrap our heads around, like, what's actually going on. So if I'm reading this correctly, we're basically within 2 years, halfway to our moderate goal out of, and we have, you know, 10 years to get there, and within 2 years, we're halfway to our moderate goal. So we're well on track to exceed our moderate goal. Is that correct?
Supervisor, yes, if the trends continue, we would be exceeding the moderate goal as well as the above moderate, close to exceeding that.
Like, it seems like by orders of magnitude, right? I mean, if this is what we've done in 2 years, we're halfway there, and we have 10 years, we might be double or more than double.
Without understanding future trends that might impact these forecasts or production rates, yes, we could exceed those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like, you know, we can't be sure on anything. I just am more thinking about if we take the past as a predictor of the future, just sort of like based on the past numbers, if we've done, you know, halfway there in 2 years and we have 10 years, sort of do the math, we're like I said, I guess it would be 3 times exceeding our moderate, and 2 times by 200% exceeding our above moderate. Am I reading this right?
Supervisor Lawson-Remer through the chair. Yes, we are moving twice as fast as expected in terms of the total overall numbers, with the most significant development numbers occurring for the moderate and above moderate. So that's correct.
Okay,
in terms of the overall trend.
That's really, really helpful. And then obviously, we are really, really, really lagging behind, 3% on the very low. So I think what I look at this, and I just sort of take away, and I would like to sort of share my thoughts as you come back with, you know, your next round of recommendations, is I think it's really important that those recommendations really focus on this very low bucket, because that's where we're clearly like significantly lagging behind. And I think that's a great idea to figure out how can we get credit for county paid for projects that you know, we're supporting with county money, even if they're in the cities. I think that's a great idea. I think that seems really worth exploring. But I would say I'm going to be really interested in any and all recommendations that focus on accelerating that very low, because that's where we're not hitting it. And the rest of it seems on track, more or less, and in fact, orders of magnitude better than on track. But that very low is where I think we're going to need a lot of like thoughtful and creative policy interventions. So, you know, I know you guys are in the process of developing this and sort of thinking about what to come back as a recommendation, but we've had all these discussions at the board about housing, but we haven't been very specific about what kind of housing. And I think that this really helps me focus on what kind of housing, and like as we think about instruments and tools, that this is where we really have this, like, obviously a huge gap. So thank you. Thank you so much for all your work. This was great, super helpful, and really helpful to sort of put what we're doing in context with our RENA and our SANDAG numbers as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I think the challenge on the RENA, I mean, look, we should get RENA credit when we're funding affordable housing, particularly on county-owned land and other jurisdictions. We should. The reality of actually effectuating that change gets incredibly complicated in the overall approach to RENA. I think there's a acknowledgement that would be right and just, but also perhaps reluctance to do that because jurisdictions could try and escape building housing in their jurisdiction by simply buying land in other jurisdictions and doing it. And so getting the state to do that, it would be more challenging than we would think it would be on the surface, but certainly worth exploring. And I think as a board, on that very low number, we've got to be ready that when they come back, it is going to require significant investment from us. Those very low numbers are just not penciling out on the natural. And so given that, I just think we need to be prepared that we have considerable work to do in that area, and it's probably going to require some very focused and intentional efforts on our part to do that. Vice Chair Vargas.
Yes, so just to add to that, I think I spend a lot of time with the team having a conversation, particularly around the very low and the low numbers in terms of the annual, where the housing will be located as well. Because I think for me, it's not just the numbers and increasing the numbers, but where are these homes going to be located so that they are where people need them to be. Because I think the challenge is that if we end up building homes and people have to drive really far away from where their families are at, and we're trying to meet our also our climate goals as well. I think I want to make sure that we're very, very innovative in how we're trying to think outside the box moving forward. And really, I think the county can make a lot more investments in trying to identify opportunities for very low and low income homes so that our communities can actually afford to buy these houses and live in the communities where their families are at. So looking forward to that information. But I also wanted to ask if maybe I understand that both, I serve as chair of transportation for SANDAG, and Supervisor Lawson-Remer serves on the SANDAG board, but I think it might be a good idea to actually send a letter to SANDAG with some of the highlights that were addressed today in this presentation, so that it's very clear that we're concerned, and that we want them to make sure that we want to work with them to find solutions. And I know that we're confident that we've worked with them in the past and that we're going to collaborate with them. But I think putting it in writing is important as we're looking at future projections and we're moving forward. And so with that, I'm happy to make a motion to support this report, and would ask that we write a letter as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, staff. I mean, this is one of the first times I think I've seen arena numbers about to be met, because it's usually, I mean, previously, the previous cycle, I guess the fifth cycle, we had 22,000 housing units, I think it was, and now it's 6,700 seems to be. And I congratulate you for being ahead of schedule, which is kind of rare. Could you go back to, I guess, to slide 20? And I guess this gets more to the SANDAG issue. And I think Rami mentioned a couple times, we need to find out how, talk with SANDAG and how we can comply. To me, I think it's more the question of SANDAG, which numbers are you really want here? Because they've got the 17, go ahead, you need the whole slide, all the colors there?
We have them now.
Well, I'm looking at the bottom one, the green lines, which is actually the SANDAG 14 Sustainable Community, what's it, Sustainable Community, what is that, S, what's the other S?
Sustainable Community Strategy, Supervisor. Sustainable
Community Strategy, and that came out in their 2021 RTP, but it went back to 2016. And I mean, we're in our
actual numbers are the, I guess, the jagged more lines that so I don't see how, I mean, we can't comply with that since those were already done, and those are actual numbers. And that the Series 14 Sustainable Community, I forgot it already. But anyway, those are way below our RENA numbers. So the state and the HCD is telling us we got to have all these RENA numbers. Sandag's 2021 plan shows no, it's only going to be this amount. We're way ahead of Sandag's amount already. So we got to get this straightened out and say, Sandag, you got to straighten this out and tell us which number it is. And we can't be going at both of them, because being where we are, well ahead, I don't want it to come to, a future where housing projects, we have to turn them away and say, yep, no, sorry, we've made our whatever, we've reached one of these Sandag parameters, and we've reached it, and now, sorry, Mr. you can't develop any more housing here in San Diego County. So, and then put VMT on top of it. So I understand the baseline is probably the unachievable number. That's all the city's general plans and everything else that they have out there. That's nobody's ever achieved those. But the Series 14 thing really kind of scares me. The fact that those numbers are 390, I think, a year, whereas Arena's like 800 a year. Pick one, Sandag, and then we'll comply, and we're able to comply, which I think is fantastic. So I think we need to, in the letter, it should, how can we meet your needs, Sandag? Is Sandag figure out what your needs are, and then we'll meet them? Is kind of what the letter should be. So I'm just really happy to see in 2021 we actually we had 1,400 housing units. But I noticed there was a discrepancy between permits issued and then certificates of occupancy issued. And there was an issue there with how many units were built or reported. What was that? For purposes of the annual report, Supervisor, the state requires that we track permits issued. So that's the time when a builder comes and gets their permits to start construction. And that number in 2021, including portions of 2020, is about 1,400 units received these permits. Well, then how many, okay, so certificate of occupancy means it's done. So permit, what's the percentage of once somebody gets a permit that the house actually gets built? Well, our record showed this year that out of that 1,400 number, over 1,000 units were actually constructed. Now, those units that were constructed, they probably received permits earlier, not in 2021. It could have been in 2020 or previous years. So so even by measuring how many housing units were built by permit, still doesn't really say the actual number then. If there's a way you can get us the actual numbers, would be much more, I guess, built in each year, even though the permit might have been issued 2 or 3 years ago. It's how many are we getting built, I guess, is really what I'm kind of looking for. Certainly, Supervisor, we recognize that. So in our report, we actually provide both numbers, the number to satisfy the state requirements, and we also provide the number actually constructed for informational purposes. Okay. Well, I'm very glad to see that, like I said, this is surprising. First time I've seen anybody reach their RENA numbers or be ahead of schedule. So congratulations on that, and hopefully we'll get this straightened out with Sandag. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I thought it was outstanding. When, the permits, earlier today, we approved a process of taking permits off the books. So I think that the occupancy is just so crucial. That's the real number, right? It doesn't matter how many are pulled, it's how many are built. The RENA numbers and all this stuff is really important, but one of the issues that is bothersome to me is no one's asking about the true need of the community, because there isn't anywhere I go that people aren't saying, I wish there was more housing. I'm having a hard time finding a place. There's not enough places to rent. There's not enough places to own. It's not affordable. And that's a supply issue. And while I get that we're going through this exercise, and it's part of it, I think the real number that we should all be focused on, at least I'm focused on this board, is meeting the needs of the community. we had talked about, earlier in the year, I had asked that we do a parcel level analysis of the VMT because so much of the numbers we're looking at here was prior to VMT in the cycle before all the new stuff came. And while our numbers are great in some levels moving forward today, that's not under the VMT rules. These are all things that were grandfathered in that have come to fruition. Are we close, or when do you think that we'll have an idea on the parcel level analysis of VMT?
Thank you, Supervisor. So our first step since receiving the board's direction was to develop a methodology for the parcel-by-parcel analysis. We expect to return to the board with an update on that methodology in June or summer of this year. And so based upon that, we will then continue the analysis and come back to the board with a full, completed look at parcel-by-parcels.
And to me, that's very important because, and I'm saying this for my constituents who are watching this meeting, all four of them, my wife included, that when we looked at some of the parcels, and I used the example of Spring Valley because that used to be in my district and I was more familiar, we had counted it as 9 units when actually the person would have to tear their home down in order to build the 9 units, which rolls me into the next point. In your presentation, you talked about by right approval. And I think that that's a crucial factor in everything that we're moving forward, because if I have to go through a bunch of hoops, the likelihood, if my margins are tight, I'm building this, I'm not gonna risk a lot of money thinking that I could be held up for years waiting for approval, not necessarily from us, but from lawsuits and everything else. The by right is crucial in predicting real numbers. And I was wondering, because we had talked about that too, is June a good time to be thinking in terms of you all having that number as well? Because I think that by right would probably be very close in analysis to the VMT analysis that you're doing.
It's close. I think we will return shortly after, sometime in September, with options for the by right approval programs. Supervisor, we began work on the by right program last summer when the board adopted the housing element. And there is a state requirement for by right approvals for a subset of the RENA sites, in which it will take about a 3-year process to get all the environmental documentation and go through the process to bring that back to the board for approval. Based upon board direction, we went a step further to look at how can we expand that by right program to all RENA sites, to also looking at mixed use development on commercial sites. And it's that piece that we hope to come back to you with some options later this year.
By the way, I appreciate it, and that's great work. This is not discouraging, I'm encouraged, and I'm glad that you're on it. And then I have another question, and you may or may not be able to answer this, but you know, when thinking about very low and low housing units that were constructed in 2021, how many were constructed? And by the way, when I say District 2 and District 5, I'm talking about the old districts, right? Because the new districts are completely different. But how many of them were constructed outside of those 2 districts? I don't know if you have that number, but if you do, that'd be very helpful.
We do have the data, Supervisor, and out of the total of 1,400 permits issued, approximately 54 of those were issued outside of districts 2 and 5. And of those 54, 2 of them were in the, I believe, in the low category.
Okay. So 52 at the low housing and 2 at the very low housing. So the reason why I was asking about this is I have a real concern. Everyone talks about RENA numbers, but nobody's really building. And now we're looking at VMT, and we're shutting down all the opportunity in my old District 2, for the most part. We went from the RENA numbers when I first got elected of just shy of 18,000 to fewer than 3,000 of total homes, not just low and very low. And now we can proudly say 54. And I'm not blaming you all. That's not, I mean, this is state law. This is the county. I mean, this is beyond our control. But as we move forward, I think it's disingenuous for me to be telling my district that we're really seriously taking this on when we have so little to show for it, and we don't have a possibility in the future of doing more. And so one of the things that I'd like to suggest to this board, and I don't know if you all would be open to it, but we've set the bar on, and I think that we've set the bar when you look at regional decarbonization. I mean, we have grabbed that by the horns and really tried to lead the way. On this housing, we should be doing the same. We should be leading the way, and we should be holding people accountable. And my concern is we're building all this infrastructure, and let me just tell you, the whole time I campaigned, not one of my constituents came up to me, and even now when I'm in the district, and said, my commute to work is too short. My commute to the grocery store or shopping is too short. No one's saying, hey, I want to commute longer. And yet, we see people from Riverside commuting for jobs down here because we have failed to provide the housing necessary. So what I'm going to suggest, and I'd like to amend this in this if it's possible, it may be that I have to bring it back as a board letter, but I'd love for staff to make a regional housing workshop, invite Sandag, and invite all the cities and communities to come to this to talk about it. Because here's the deal. We've gone through this, and we've said, well, you know, those coastal communities where they have mass transit and they have easy access, they're going to build these low-income houses. They're not. And if they are, I want to hear it, but I want to put them on record. Because everyone says they're going to do stuff, and yet I have constituent after constituent with no place to go housing-wise. And so I want to do my due diligence to hold it. We've been very transparent, and we've been working hard. But we need to see it coming from other communities. When we showed the examples, most of those examples were from my district or my old district. And I'm just thinking, if we shut down my old district through VMT and nobody steps up, what we're saying is there's no equity for these low and very low, because it's not going to get done. I mean, even on our best day, we did 54. We can do better. I know we can do better. So, you know, I'd love for us to host it. And you know what, I don't want to jump ahead to staff. Maybe, Sarah, you could speak to this. But I think having everybody in the same room and having Sandag explain, and then have everybody say, yeah, we'll commit to these many houses. Yeah, we will. But for us to turn around and lower our numbers because of Sandag and have nobody meet us halfway, this is a failed policy. And look, you know, I've tried to be as supportive as possible on all these things because I want a better community. I want better things. But I'm not going to lie to my constituents and say that this is an earnest effort that has a chance of building homes for them when there's no possibility because the game's rigged against them. And I think that we have a chance. So that's
yeah, just one thing. We didn't lower our numbers. The numbers are set by Sandag. The county, we didn't decide to lower our arena numbers. That's a process, the state process that our MPO administers. But let me go to Supervisor Wasserman real quick for thoughts on workshop on housing.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, I think it's pretty clear we all agree. I spoke on this. You know, Supervisor Vargas spoke on this. That we're all, you know, very concerned about the lack of construction of very low housing. I mean, that's what the graph showed. I think it's very clear that this is a problem. I'm working really hard on this, right? You know, I've started this regional equitable housing subcommittee at Sandag, you know, trying to figure out how do we create those incentives, how do we create funding, how do we get those commitments. This has to be a priority. I just want to, I think that there's a piece of how you outlined your proposal that I don't really follow. You know, I think what you said was, looking back, we haven't done a very good job on our meeting our very low commitments. And I think that's true. We haven't. And that was true before and prior to any kind of VMT policy. So if you're looking for causal relationships, clearly, like, you can't have a causal relationship that's creating a housing crisis from a policy that never previously existed. And I think it's important to therefore acknowledge that the solutions are going to come from a different spot. And I'd be more than happy, you know, to work on on a regional housing workshop through SANDAG, but I think that's the appropriate body to do it. I think it's a little out of our lane as a county. If we wanted to as the county, call on SANDAG to put that together, I would be happy to support that. I think that the thing I want to say, and I think it's important to say it really in a really honest way, I don't think a workshop's going to make a difference. I mean, I think this is a real problem. I think it's going to take real investment, real resources. That's what Chair Fletcher identified, that the market is not going to solve this problem on its own. And it's going to take us stepping forward with resources, with incentives to get that housing built. And, we know cities talk all day about housing numbers. If you want to have another talk shop, I'm not going to block that, but I'm much more interested in real solutions. So I think that what I would say is if I would be happy to support an amendment to this motion that asks SANDAG to convene some kind of regional housing workshop. I think that, don't think there's a problem with that, but I don't think that's a solution. I think we need to be much bolder and broader and bigger and transformative than just a workshop.
Thank you. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you. I actually, I do think that SANDAG is doing an exceptional work around that particular issue, and I think that the work that you're leading there is the work that needs to happen in that space. But I think that we play a very unique role as a county board of supervisors, having been elected by our constituents to really think about what does housing look for us, right, as a board. So there's SANDAG, and then there's the 18 cities and their representatives, and then what are we looking at as well, and what can we do together? And then what can we advocate? And as we're looking at the Office of Economic Prosperity and Community Development, as we're looking at the Air Pollution Control District, as we're looking at SANDAG, all these different entities that we are that are part of the County of San Diego, where do they interact? Where are we investing? How are we advocating for federal funding, state funding, where we can actually advocate, and then also to have input from our communities and what the greater needs are. So I don't think it would be a bad idea to have an actual workshop during one of the meetings like we've had before, just to hear from our communities. And I don't think I think it adds on. I don't think it's separate from what the SANDAG work that is being done. I think that the work that you're leading, I think, is really important for the county as a whole, and what. But I think it adds to what you're doing, not takes away from it. I think so. I don't think you need an amendment, in my opinion. But
yeah, I think go. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vice Chair. No, doing a workshop, we could just do. I mean, we could docket a thing and do a time certain workshop. I don't think we have to amend anything here. I think we could just, if there's a consensus we want to do that, we could work together to figure out how to docket something, have various groups come in and present and kind of drive that discussion. So I think that's certainly something that's infinitely doable and fairly easy. But let me go to Supervisor Desmond, and I'll go back to Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you. And Supervisor Anderson, I appreciate your comments on that. I don't know if another workshop's going to do it. And communities, to try to get a community to commit to, we're going to build this many houses. Communities don't build houses. Developers do. And so we got to incentivize the development community. We have to incentivize the development community with dollars to build the lower income housing. And we got to figure out how to do that. And then we put in requirements for it, inclusionary housing, or by right kind of scares me, but depending on how it's done. But let's set the example instead of, you didn't do it, so we're not going to do it. Screw that. Just we do it. So why don't we do it? We got to make sure that housing dollars, if we're going to put more money into the housing, we put it into the, you get more money if you put in more of the lower income housing. I mean, it's pretty simple, but.
Supervisor Desmond, but I think that's why I want us to have a workshop, because I think the only way we've been thinking about building housing is that developers are the only people who build housing, and I think we need to stop thinking about it that way. I think that we need to think about housing from a different perspective as well, and we've seen other models that work really well. There's all different types of developers that build housing. I mean, sure. Not just developers for profit. And so, and I know everybody's going to freak out right now who's listening to this. So, there's a space for them, but there's also different models that work, so that we're looking at rent-to-own homes. We're looking at different models of housing that can really work for our communities. Because right now, if we look at the RENA numbers and who's buying these homes, what are we building? We're not building for regular people to be able to buy homes. A home right now in my district is about $750,000, $800,000. People who make regular wages cannot afford a house in San Diego County right now. And so I'm really concerned about the housing that we're trying to build in San Diego right now, and where affordable housing is being built is not in my district, and it's for sure not in Supervisor Anderson's district either. And so I want us to have a real conversation, not just about building homes, you know, and just building homes to build numbers, to meet our numbers. I want us to have a real conversation about how do we build homes so that people who live in San Diego, who want to stay in San Diego, can afford to live in these homes based on the jobs that they have in these communities. And I don't think we can have that conversation outside of, you know,
Well,
right now.
and to achieve that, we have to incentivize to do that and then regulate, unfortunately, and to do that. And so, and I know everybody talks about their district, but this is the unincorporated area that we're talking about up here. This is the unincorporated areas. And I know everybody has a piece of that now. But anyway, let's set the example, get it done, and as opposed to.
I think in some part too. I mean, so much of what we're doing goes beyond just the unincorporated, though. I mean, we have a lot of housing on county-owned land in incorporated cities.
That's fine.
And it's, again, we don't get the RENA credit for it, but it's still housing that people can do. So, all right, we'll go back to Supervisor Anderson. I think we'll land the plane on this one.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair Fletcher. What hit me was your original point about holding the region accountable. So in my mind, there are three things that need to be addressed. One, that there's a benchmark holding not just the county accountable, but the whole region. So we can do our best on our own, and if it doesn't affect change in the other cities, we've not accomplished what we need to do for the region. And so the reason why I like the idea of doing this with Sandag and having the other cities is, you know, I don't know, but when was the last time low income or super low income housing went in for Encinitas, Solana Beach, or Del Mar? And that's okay, but if they never are going to do it, and that's okay, then it has to be done somewhere. And if Sandag gets everybody in the room and they all say, yes, we believe that we can build this with our RENA numbers, then great, there's a commitment and there's a timeline and we're meeting the needs of the region. If they say no, then let's rethink and reimagine what that future looks like. At one point, there was a trolley going to Ramona. And I'm not saying there has to be a trolley going to Ramona, but maybe we're thinking about this wrong and saying, maybe we extend the trolley to Lakeside, and then Lakeside has the opportunity to build the homes that no coastal community is going to do because perhaps the price of the land is just so expensive it's prohibitive. But the notion that we're going to keep saying, well, we're doing our part, but we're not holding anybody else accountable. You know, we all ran, and I'm saying this in the kindest of ways, we ran to improve our communities. I've not met anybody in elected office that doesn't want to improve their community. And I just think about the needs in my community, and I'm thinking, we're all going to continue to go through the motion, and we're never going to affect change. Having everybody to commit, having everybody on record is important because now you have a benchmark to measure them against in the next election. Are they moving the ball, or are they just talking about it? And when I look at how far we've come, and I look at the VMT and Supervisor Lawson-Remer, I agree with her. I'm not saying that VMT is the reason for the failed policy, but seeing our future numbers reduced in my old district from just under 18,000 to under 3,000, I can't ignore that. That's a fact. So then how do we change that? Well, maybe we change the future of what mass transit looks like, and we project moving there, and we build to that and have it grow together. I want to have a solution. And I think that too often people want to just get through. And Chair Fletcher, you and I both witnessed in Sacramento, kicking the can is what we do best in the legislature. We kick it down. We know we're in term limits. All we have to do is kick it beyond our term limit, and then somebody else's problem. Well, I didn't like it in Sacramento, and I certainly don't want to do it here, and that's why in Lawson-Remer, Supervisor, I will be reaching out to you because I think that we need to do it. But we got to get people on record so that we can hold them accountable, because if they say, we're not going to build it, I'm okay with it, but let's accommodate the people we do represent.
I don't think anyone would say they're not going to build it because there's a state requirement you do it. The question is, if you say you do it, do you actually do it or not? And there's states been stepping up enforcement on that. Let's go to Supervisor Wasserman. Final thoughts on this item.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think I appreciate this conversation because I think it does reveal both some really clear commonalities in terms of priorities and some pretty significant differences, right? I think one thing that's really clear is that we're all really committed to affordable housing and to tackling affordable housing in our region. It's a priority I've heard from every single person sitting up here. But I do think from my perspective, I agree with Supervisor Desmond that this is not going to happen because elected officials stand up and make commitments. This is going to happen because we create incentives for private developers or some other kinds of developers, as Supervisor Vargas pointed out. The sort of universe of the type of folks who can build housing is bigger than maybe we've necessarily thought. But in any case, we have to make it pencil at the end of the day. We're not going to solve our housing crisis because we get a bunch of elected officials in the room to make speeches about how they're going to fulfill RHNA numbers. We're going to make it happen because we make it pencil for developers to actually build. And I think that incentive piece is really important. It's what I hope to see you all kind of focus on and come back with about how we can put our money where our mouth is, make incentives really work to get to those very low numbers that we're not hitting in our RHNA targets. But just I think as a regional issue, we have a choice as a region, right? We either say, look, we care about climate, we care about environment, we care about making sure people can live close to where they work and where schools and facilities are, and that they're not, driving many, many hours every single day. And therefore, if that's what we care about, we do need to do the work to create incentives for cities to build in cities. And I think that's not happening, and it's creating pressure in our unincorporated areas, and that is work we need to do, but it's not going to just happen because, we got a bunch of mayors say, hey, I'm going to build these numbers. We actually need to kind of figure out what are the mechanisms, what are the financing mechanisms to enable the building to happen in those cities. And I think that, to me, is where the hard work lies. And I think the other approach is giving up. It's to say, look, well, we can't figure out how to help developers do the right thing. So we're going to pave over all our open spaces. We're going to build in the middle of nowhere so people are stuck driving in traffic for hours to get to school and to get to work. And I personally refuse to do that. I think it's both and. I think that we can build affordable housing in ways that are walkable, livable, environmentally sustainable, that are mixed use, mixed income, and support people to live really high quality lives, near their families, near their jobs. And, to the extent that we care about this issue, we have to acknowledge it is hard. This is not going to happen easily. If it was going to happen easily, it would have happened already. And it's not going to happen without a lot of innovation and creativity in figuring out how to change the structure of the market. I don't think it's going to happen just because more elected officials make promises. So I think I just wanted to take a moment to just really call out how difficult this is. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to sort of grapple with and struggle with these issues together with colleagues who I think want to get to some solutions. And I really appreciate staff and your ability and your focus on trying to come up with some of those mechanisms. And I do want to say it is partly about us doing our part. And I think that's what this presentation was about today. But it's also about how do we support and encourage other jurisdictions across the region to also do their part. And that is what I'm focused on in the Regional Equitable Housing Subcommittee, is to create those tools and their mechanisms for jurisdictions that are not just our unincorporated area, but our cities across the coast to step up and do more. And so to the extent that anyone wants to partner with me on helping our coastal cities and our cities who are maybe not doing their fair share to do more, I would very much welcome your partnership.
Supervisor Anderson, with something that hasn't already been said.
No, I'm not going to rehash. So are we moving ahead with the housing or not?
We can work. It's not appropriate to add to this item, but we can work on docketing a workshop.
I just need that clarification.
So yes, I think we can definitely schedule some more time to talk some more about housing and figure out what the structure of that is. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, motion by Vice Chair Vargas, seconded by myself. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas. Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We are going to proceed with our adjournments in memory, and we have 4 adjournments in memory today. After those, we will then return to the remainder non-agendized public communications. Our first adjournment will be from Supervisor Anderson, honoring Kim Lacey.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'd like to adjourn today's meeting in memory of Kim Lacey, a Ramona resident who dedicated her life to the betterment of her community. Kim was always a dedicated community servant, but her passion for helping youth became remarkably evident after Kim became a mother herself. The time that she spent volunteering in her daughter's classrooms inspired her to become involved in the Parent Teachers Association and as a school board, in school board meetings. This dedication was noticed by her community, which selected her to the Ramona Unified Board of Education for over a decade. Kim could be found at schools in Ramona almost daily, delivering home-cooked meals to teachers or organizing events to build awareness around suicide prevention and the dangers of drinking and driving. While she made her mark in the school system, Kim was eager to serve her community in all the ways possible. She was a shining example of the Ramona Rotary Club's motto of service above self, a club that she led as president from 2016 to 2019. She led countless events that brought the community together, including the annual fireworks show and the Ramona Grape Stomp. But Kim's selfless nature was truly evident through her efforts during the Witch Creek fire in 2007, where she hosted an event for every single family in Ramona that lost their home, providing them with blankets and gifts for their children. Kim will be remembered as a selfless leader, love of her great Pyrenees companions, and most of all, her unyielding devotion to family. Kim lives behind her loving husband, Jim, and their 3 daughters, Krista, Dina, and Jamie. She will be deeply missed by her friends, family, and the entire Ramona community. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Our next adjournment will be from Supervisor Desmond, honoring Hans Britsch.
Thank you, Chair. Hans Britsch, he actually passed away in early February at the age of 89. He loved plants, studied agriculture, and he earned a prestigious Swiss diploma in horticulture. His funeral was held on March 29th at the Mission San Luis Rey in Oceanside. In 1966, he met his wife, Gretel, who also immigrated from Switzerland, bought a nursery in Vista, and named it Western Cactus Growers. They got their first big break that same year by supplying the Alpha Beta grocers with their plants. Hans and his wife of 60 years traveled the world collecting seeds and making important plant discoveries and expanding Western cactus by establishing multiple other companies on more than 100 acres of land across San Diego County. Hans enjoyed being an active member of his community, made charitable contributions, and donated endangered plants to organizations such as the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, the San Diego Botanical Gardens, and the Huntington Library in Pasadena. Hans was a devout Catholic, and he led an extraordinary life dedicated to his family and his plants. He led with humility, and he lived each day to its fullest. And as a loving husband, father, and farmer, we send our deepest condolences to his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Today, with great sadness, we adjourn the Board of Supervisors meeting in memory of a dear friend of so many of us, Bob Nelson. Bob Nelson was a large personality, an engaging storyteller, just a wonderful individual who, if you met him once, you would remember him for the rest of your life. 40 years ago, Bob founded Nelson Communication, later became Murphy Nelson Marketing, and he worked on multiple projects at the national and state level. He did public school efforts around water systems. He worked with organized labor. He did winning campaigns for ballot measures across California. and many other states across the country. And tragically, last week, Bob passed away at 70 years old. A member of the community for so long, he brought so much to San Diego. He served on just about everything you could serve on in San Diego. State of California Film Commission, the Board of Clean Tech, was involved in the San Diego, chaired the Convention Center, Board of Directors, San Diego LGBT Center, member of the City of San Diego Public Utilities Advisory Commission, the San Diego District Attorney's Advisory Board. He was a port commissioner for many years and very involved in the port. The current Port Commission Chairman, Dan Malcolm, said Nelson would be remembered by the port and throughout the region for his intellectual curiosity, his breadth of knowledge and a wide range of interest, and his dedication to balancing economic development and growth with environmental sustainability and community benefit. Bob was an amazing storyteller, and whether you were out on his boat on the bay, sitting at his home, or having a long lunch with him at Jimmy Carter's, one of his favorite local restaurants, Bob was something incredibly special for San Diego, and he will be dearly, dearly missed. We send our condolences to everyone who had the great fortune to come in contact with Bob and are grateful for the life he lived. And today we adjourn our meeting in memory of Bob Nelson. Today we also adjourn our meeting in memory of Victor LaRucha. Victor LaRucha was born September 28, 1941 in Santiago, Chile, to an Italian Argentine father and a mother from a small working-class Italian town in western Pennsylvania. His family relocated from Chile to Pennsylvania when he was a child, and the Italian culture was an incredibly important part of not only his childhood, but throughout his entire life. He was a part of UCSD's first graduating class in 1966 and went on to earn a master's and a doctorate degree in comparative literature. He taught film at Brown University, and he's known by his students as an outside-the-box thinker, even creating films with the students and always pushing them to do things they never thought that they would be able to do. One of his former students said he was just an unbelievable dreamer, and he inspires you to be a dreamer too, and not so concerned about the practicalities of life. Victor moved back to San Diego to teach at UCSD before taking a job as a telecommunications administrator. But after retiring in 1995, he settled here in San Diego and had a lot more time for his true passion, Italian culture. In 2005, he founded the San Diego Italian Film Festival, which 15 years later is still going strong. After his death, their board of directors put out a statement where they wrote, "In Italy, the piazza is the center of life and activity. Members of the community meet to talk over the day's event and share their lives and passion. It's here that friendships are forged, romances are kindled, and stories unfold." At the San Diego Italian Film Festival, it was Victor's mission to be like the piazza, stimulating, educating, provoking, connecting, and sharing stories through the lens of Italian culture. San Diegans will continue to benefit from his life and his enthusiasm and the impact that he leaves. Jennifer Davies said of her stepdad, everything was big about him. He had a big heart. He was generous with his time and his thoughts. He had big hugs. Everyone knows the big Victor bear hug. He had a big laugh, a big smile, and most of all, a big heart. We send our deepest condolences to Jennifer and to his wife of 47 years, Janice, and to their 2 grandchildren, and we adjourn our meeting in his honor and memory today. With that, we will return to our non-agendized public speakers. I'll ask the clerk to call forward those speakers remaining.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We do have 9 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, all by phone. For those that have requested to speak via phone, I'd ask that you please dial into the conference line now. Using the instructions that were provided to you, we will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I would remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we will begin with our first caller. And again, please state your name for the audio record.
Kathleen Lippert here. As a public health practitioner, I have advocated for effective evidence-based drug abuse prevention strategies that address drug use behaviors in their earliest stages. So I was pleased to hear your comments at the Valle de Oro Planning Group, recognizing the need to focus on wellness for all children and intervening earlier for better outcomes. Supervisor Fletcher, you have bemoaned San Diego being late to the game, but partnering with the drug industry is not a game. The industry must treat children and young adults their best hope for future high-risk and frequent users from whom they will profit. And early drug use increases the risk of going on to other drugs like opioids and fentanyl, which contribute to the tragedy of drug overdose and death. The county's normalization of drugs and the absence of robust prevention strategies provided fertile ground for today's problems: homelessness, drug abuse, addiction, and overdose deaths. Drug abuse is a root cause of all these problems as a result of a failure to do prevention. Treatment is the final stage where intervention is possible, where it has the lowest cost to benefit ratio and is the least effective. Administering naloxone, clean needles, and treatment are reactive strategies without the ability to undo the harm endured by users, their families, and their communities. The prevention community looks forward to a renewed commitment to preventing drug abuse and addiction. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. We will go to our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a concerned parent and public health educator. I come today to acknowledge and publicly thank the U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, for coming to San Diego Monday and speaking directly to our teens from Lincoln High School regarding mental health. Murthy recognizes that educating teens on drug prevention, particularly marijuana, is key to improving mental health. Murthy issued an advisory titled Protecting Youth Mental Health. After collecting data from national surveys, the results they found are staggering. 1 in 3 high school students and half of the female students reported feelings of persistent sadness or hopelessness. And more than 6,600 Americans between the ages of 10 and 24 died by suicide in 2020. This is a 57% increase from 2018. Murthy stated that it takes an average of 11 years before a child gets evidence-based treatment after first experiencing symptoms of depression or anxiety. That's not acceptable, he said. We've got to do better in providing treatment, and we've got to do better in terms of investing in prevention. Sadly, many of our teens are self-medicating with marijuana to treat their anxiety and depression. This is only exacerbating their situation. Our Surgeon General acknowledges that marijuana destroys the developing brain. Our county can do better in protecting our youth. Marijuana advertising on billboards, as well as on the back of grocery receipts and other locations across the county, should be prohibited. Please consider the plea of our Surgeon General and help protect our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator, and I'm the parent of a high school student and a college student. I share the concerns of the previous caller. My experience with students and educators confirms what the headlines tell us nearly every day, that teens and young adults are experiencing record rates of stress, depression, and anxiety. Many do not have a trusted adult they can confide in, or lack access to professional mental health treatment and care. Some attempt to escape their thoughts and feelings by using marijuana. As it happens, marijuana is more likely to create anxiety or make it worse than to alleviate it. Worse still, there is a strong association between marijuana use and suicide. According to the San Diego County Medical Examiner, 39% of completed suicides under the age of 25 tested positive for THC in 2020. That's about 1 in 3. While marijuana helps a user briefly stop caring about their problems, everything comes rushing back when the high wears off. Numerous studies have demonstrated that marijuana can actually cause or increase anxiety. This effect is strongly related to high-potency THC, the frequency of use, and the age when use begins. Marijuana will not help. It will actually make mental health worse and could harm users in many other ways. There is no safe level of THC in the developing brain. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Ann Riddle here. As a parent advocate, it's been important that we convey to our parents the messages that are going on in our community that they can use in their own families and in their own neighborhoods to protect our young people. I wonder if we really understand the role of parents. They are the ones who are raising the generation of people who are going to become part of our society. And they need all the help they can get. And I wonder if they are getting it from our elected officials. And of course, since I'm speaking to the Board of Supervisors, I'm speaking to you. Are you helping them by putting more marijuana businesses in the backcountry? I'd like to respectfully suggest you are not. You are undermining the very people who are going to be responsible for bringing into the next decade our citizens. We have had some good news on the front of legislation for parents, and that is that yesterday at the Assembly held, it passed Bill AB 1690, passed out of Assembly Health. This is regarding a ban on the single-use vapes and e-cigs that are both used for tobacco and marijuana. I'd like to respectfully suggest that we support parents and that the Board of Supervisors write a letter of support for AB 1690. This would be a good first step in showing our parents that you understand the role of e-cigs and vaping products, particularly for marijuana, but tobacco as well, in addicting our young people at the worst and influencing their health along the way. Thank you for considering this request.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Consuelo. To the people of San Diego County, California, and the world, keep on defending freedom. We may be the last generation which has the possibility to rebel, and if you don't rebel, there may be no more chances. Humanity can be reduced to a robot-like existence. So rebel while there is still time. Remember, we are in their house, playing their game, by their rules, on their court. Now ask yourself, are we going to win by playing on their court? Are we going to advance playing by their rules? Are we ever going to escape slavery by abiding by the tyrannical request? The answer is no. Never will we ever advance as a species under their rule. They try to fit everyone in a left wing or a right wing box because they know you cannot think outside of their paradigm. Keep on defending freedom. Freedom is the absence of a ruling class. You cannot be free and have someone that rules over you. They are complete opposites. Therefore, freedom can only be obtained by removing the people claiming to be above you. There is no other way to be free than freeing ourselves from a ruling class. As long as there are people that can dictate what you can or cannot do, you will always be enslaved by them. No matter how many privileges they allow you, you too have. There is no such thing as a good or righteous ruling class because the very foundation of ruling over someone is to dominate them. Our psyche has been captured. They're playing the people against each other to control, exploit, and distract us from the real problem, the system that they have created. Keep on defending freedom. Wake up.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Truth. Jim, even I know what SCS is. Come on. And Joel, I know where to go for affordable housing. Outside this state. Anyway, I watched the county's Earth Day videos. I saw that county staff in this building had to pledge their allegiance to the sustainability decarbonization agenda. Helen bragged about a compost bin. Michael has a reusable water bottle. Sarah bragged about her overpriced electric vehicle. Ebony bragged about expensive solar panels. Nick's got a hybrid. And Holly said she likes picking up trash. Well, not a single supervisor, not Joel, not Nora, not Jim, not Nathan, and not even UN trained Tara offered up even one little change they've made to their lives in the name of the decarbonization agenda. Not a single person said they stopped driving and now take public transit. Not a single person even said they recycle. Eventually, under the county's decarbonization framework, none of you will be able to drive your cars anymore. Unless this will become just like the Soviet Union, where regular people couldn't find food in the markets, but all the government apparatchiks got fatter and fatter. Here are facts from the decarbonization framework. Quote, parking reductions, vehicle miles traveled reductions, reduction of emissions from transportation of 51 to 82% by 2035, 100% by 2050, end quote. If you think your electric vehicle will save the earth, here's another quote. Lithium is a key ingredient used in batteries for electric cars. Environmental considerations include releasing lithium into the atmosphere, ecosystem damage, and a lack of recycling of lithium batteries, end quote. All that info is from the November 17th, 2021, February 9th, 2022 meetings.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that will conclude the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
Thank you. With that, we stand adjourned. I'll ask board members to hang right here. We're going to ask members of the staff or public who are not a part of closed session to please depart the chambers, and we will resume closed session right here in chambers.
And Chair, I need to recuse myself on item K.